just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
What just happened?
What the f happened?
What just happened? I'm Dan, that's Julia, and that's Vex, and she's going to be joining us for True Detective Night Country. Real quick, we're going to be doing a giveaway once we hit 3,000 subscribers. We're going to Venmo someone $50. All you got to do is subscribe to win, and if you like Vex over here, her channel is going to be linked below. Go check her out. She does movie reviews and a bunch of other stuff. She's very talented, and we're lucky to have her. So here we go. We're going to be doing theory videos. We're going to do one possibly this week. So comment anything that you picked up in this episode, and we'll talk about it. So this episode, Season 4, Episode 1 of True Detective, called Part 1. They're not doing episode titles this season, so that's something that we're going to have to deal with. Kind of annoys me.
Kind of boring.
So it opens up in Ennis, Alaska. It was actually filmed in Iceland. I looked it up. 150 miles north of the Arctic Circle. And it was December 17th, the last sunset of the year. And they're at an Arctic research station, and a man named Clark starts shaking. And he says,
She's awake.
so right off the bat,
Yeah.
that's something that we're going to have to theorize about. Like, who is she? What the hell was he talking about?
And like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were they holding someone hostage? Like, what was with that? I don't know. That's part of the mystery that we're going to have to solve together. Then we go to December 20th, and a delivery man walks into the station trying to talk to anyone to get in and get out.
Guys, I need a signature. Come on, I have to get back.
And that Ferris Bueller scene is like on a loop. It's that same scene that was on earlier when they were all hanging out together, and it's like stuck on a loop. And then he finds a severed tongue on the floor, and here we go. So any thoughts on that off the bat?
Yuck is my thought.
I mean, the whole like opening scene with the elk jumping off the ledge or whatever, or sorry, the caribou, I should say, caribou jumping off. That was kind of weird, but again, like True Detective is one of those shows that is very heavy on the symbolism. So I'm at like there's quite a few that I picked up throughout this as we go along. First of all, I thought that dude that said like she's awake, I thought that was a ghost for a moment because he just kind of appeared out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had snow on him and everything too. So I was like,
Yeah.
I just want to know where the convulsions fit in there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
What was up with that? What was up with that? Strange.
no clue. But I thought
Strange.
it was an interesting, like just to set up like what these researchers were doing and what they were like. The guy that was on the camera too video calling, I imagine that will come in interesting later on. But from the get-go, they play up like the supernatural elements, which is a first. Because
Yeah.
like all the other three seasons didn't do that at all. So I that makes me a little bit like, because I like that True Detective played off of the creepy real world stuff, right? But we'll see what happens.
So then we meet Navarro for the first time. She comes into a shop to see a man knocked out, and there's been like a history of domestic abuse with him and a female worker at this plant.
What's the story here? He hits me, I moved out, he didn't like it.
So she finds out what happens and she locks him up, but then she gets a phone call, and we'll find out what that was about in just a little bit. And then enter Jodie Foster. It's the first time she's on screen as Liz Danvers. And then we meet Hank Pryor as well.
This is what this place looks like on the inside, huh?
And it seems like he's going to be a big part of this story. He has a son, Pete, also, that we'll talk about in a little bit. So we find out that the entire research station has gone missing. And Ferris Bueller still playing on a loop, and she freaks out because she hates the Beatles, apparently, and she manages to turn it off.
Not a Beatles fan, okay?
So then Pete starts going through the names of all the missing researchers. Pete is Hank's son. And then Liz finds written on a whiteboard, "We are all dead." And then Liz also deduces that they have been missing for at least 48 hours because she knows her cold cuts and what mayo looks like after a couple days.
Mayo's like syrup. Mayo doesn't go running until a couple days out of the fridge.
So that's how she puts that together. And then she also finds out that the tongue is a native woman's tongue.
Remember that native auntie that we found a year ago? She had the same marks. Comes from licking the thread you're fixing the fishing nets. That is a native woman's tongue.
Then, like, the weirdest part of the episode for me, we talked a little bit about Supernatural already. This woman, we don't know her name. We find out she's Rose later on.
Yeah.
She sees a man named Travis. And at first I'm like, what is this guy with barefoot and no jacket doing out there in the middle of nowhere? And of course, later on, spoiler alert, we find out that he's dead and this person's just in her mind. It was just we got like 3 scenes with them, but it turned out to play a huge part later on. So we'll talk about it when we get to it. Navarro seems to think the tongue belongs to a woman from the cold case.
It's not her tongue. How do you know? It's been 6 years. It can't be her tongue.
So Annie K. So Navarro has a really strong history with this cold case because she was there on scene and she saw the brutality done to this Annie, so she never found the murderer. Maybe it'll tie into whoever did this to the researchers. I'm sure it will. That'll be interesting. Then we see a scene with Danvers arguing with her daughter about making a sultry video with another female.
Oh.
And then while they're arguing, we see a woman who turns out to be drunk, comes out of nowhere and crashes into a pole.
Just so the whole like I understand that they're trying to set up like she has a tense relationship with this daughter or whatever, who we learn later on is not her actual daughter, because like the kid says later, like, you don't have to keep pretending
Yeah.
to be my mom, kind of deal. Like,
Yeah,
that's
right.
not what, right?
Mm.
So there's some obligation there, but I found it really weird that in order to build up that there is like some tension or that she might be a bit of a wayward teen, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna have a bunch of underage girls film a lesbian
Right?
spicy
Like,
tape. I was like, you
Yeah.
could maybe you could just do like, oh, they were having a party or they were
like I
drinking
feel like they
illegally.
were
Yeah.
like they were trying too hard to get the shock factor, I think.
Right.
Like,
That
but,
was
but
like,
for what? Like it
and
doesn't
like
feel like it's that important to the
they
storyline.
they really like push in there that she's 15 too. Like, these are two 15-year-old
No, she's
lesbians.
16.
16.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
she said.
Yeah, the other girl is
she's-
16.
She's 16. What? Sherry's 16, not 15.
Yeah,
And I'm just
yeah.
like, are kids these days doing that? Are y'all just like getting together and filming
Right?
filming dirty videos
No.
together?
No.
Like, someone in the
Well,
comments, please let me
No,
know.
we
'cause
used
that-
to like walk around the mall and like go to Claire's to pick out earrings. Like
there you go.
yeah.
So like that felt like a really just like unnecessary piece of dialogue to do what they were trying to do. I did like kind of appreciate the car crash scene because it plays into the fact that Jodie Foster's character, like, yeah, she's kind of methodical, which we see later, but she's more of a
Mm.
hothead. And we see that come into play quite a
yeah.
few times. So like I was okay with that, and how like it's clearly a small town. So everyone knows everyone. That's why like people are watching the car crash. I have a feeling that drunk chick will probably come into play later because like she was
Yeah.
moaning on
Yeah.
about like my son or my daughter or something, like my kid, my
Yeah.
kid. I need to see my kid kind of deal.
Yeah.
So
My baby, she's not speaking to me.
And
Yeah.
we even saw someone screamed out the window. Is that Stacy again? Like, it
yeah,
was like they knew it was happening. So yeah.
Is that fucking Stacy Chalmers again?
So Stacy gets locked up. We see another scene with her later when she's in the jail. Then Navarro goes to see a man named Ryan to talk about Annie. We find out Ryan is Annie's brother. So he doesn't seem too interested in going through all of this again. It seems to bring up a lot of pain and bad memories
Yeah.
for him. So he doesn't really want to work through any of this.
Don't take this wrong. I love my sister, and I wish like hell she was still here. But I'm not sure it'd do much good to go through all this again.
But I'm sure once we get to the end of the series, the cold case will be wrapped up. That's my assumption anyway. And we'll see Ryan come into play again later. Maybe he's the killer. You never know. You got to keep your eyes open for everyone with True Detective.
there was a small bit of dialogue in this scene that I picked up on. So like when the show opens, because I missed the first 6 minutes, so like it played right after, so I watched the first 6 minutes. December 17th is the last day of snow. December 20th is when they find the researchers, right? They find out that they're missing.
Right.
And then when she goes to visit Annie's brother, she's like, "Can I have a glass of water?" And he's like, "No, the water's been out for 3 days." I was like, that's an interesting coincidence.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't
right.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just thought, because it's probably like, because they find them out on the ice, so I'm assuming that's a lake or something as well. But yeah, I thought that was a interesting bit of dialogue. Sorry, continue.
Navarro then gets a call from another cop named Cooper, and she goes in to see, which we find out is Navarro's sister named Jules. So shout out Jules, if someone has your name. And she's going through some mental problems. So we'll see what that comes into play later.
that.
I don't know. Yeah, me too. I get it. Trust me. So yeah, she's got that going on, and Cooper said he'll keep that between the two of them.
Business between us.
He had a disturbance call about her at all, so kind of keeping it quiet. So we'll see what's happening with Jules later on. So Pete is at the station looking at the funding for the research center, but during this time, Stacy's freaking out. So then Danvers is like, "Nah, we're not letting Stacy out."
Putting us all out of our misery.
The fuck you are? She's still drunk.
Yeah, so I'll drive her home.
Accuses Hank of having fellatio with
I'm not letting a still drunk DUI out just because sometimes she blows you.
Stacy every now and then. He's like, hey, I got a fiance. She's like, whatever. Get me the files on Annie. I want to look into it a little bit.
And I need the Ann Kotok file. You got it.
Do I?
Yeah, it's at your place. You took a bunch of case files home after the flood.
I don't think so. I'll check.
But she doesn't seem to trust him because of what we find out later with what Pete does. And that happens this scene because Pete is at home. He's about to get it on with his girl, Kayla, but Danvers calls wanting something from Hank's house, the files that she just asked Hank for. So, like, why wouldn't you just wait for Hank to get it to you? She doesn't
Right.
trust him. What's up with that? You know?
So like during that whole jail scene where Stacy's there, like he also like dropped some information that, oh, like I had this girl coming in from.
She's from Vladivostok, and she's coming for Christmas. We're getting married.
So that's like another little thing that I was like, oh, maybe that will come into play later. Because again, this is a very isolated community. So like the idea of someone having to go outside and get someone to come there instead of leaving, it was kind of interesting. And then the kid, Pete's kid that he has with that woman, with Kayla, he's like under the desk drawing like these weird, it was a blue haired creature like the sister, which was funny. But like she was like dripping blood and everything, which is like another thing that's just like, oh, there must be some like native, because he's like, oh, grandma's telling her those stories again, and it's just, oh, there must be something that's going to tie in as well, the fact that
Yeah.
right, like they're very obvious with it, I feel, compared to like some of the previous seasons where it wasn't so, like, sure, you'd pick up on like the little like symbols maybe, but like it didn't feel like as in your face that like, oh, this is something that I'm going to have to remember for later. I don't know if you guys felt that
Yeah.
way at all.
No, yeah. It's
Yeah.
something to look into. And little Darwin is his name, so we'll see what happens with that. So yeah, Pete heads over to Hank, his father's house, and he has this excuse saying he needs a picture from when he was young to show Darwin. He promised he would show him. So while he's there, he's really there for the files on Annie, and he's distracting his dad, asking for food and trying to keep him out of the room for as long as possible. Comes up with the idea to toss the file out the window, and then when Hank's like, all right, what you take, he does actually have a picture that he brought with him to have as an excuse to be like, hey, this is
Which
what
I
I was
guess
doing.
really smart. I would never
It
do
is,
that.
yeah. Yeah, it was a good idea.
Didn't know I still had that.
But like, I still don't get why Danvers just didn't trust Hank to do this for her.
Oh,
I
well,
don't
like
get
in
that.
in that exchange, like I mean, because there's clearly like she just accused him of getting blowjobs from this drunk chick, first of all.
Right.
But like he also says right away, like, no, I don't think I have that file. No, because she says like you took some files
Yeah.
home, right? So I
Yeah, it
think
was
that's
weird.
more. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more where the distrust is like she kind of like just inherently
Yeah,
knows.
something's
And
like definitely off though. Like, because why wouldn't you just be like, yeah, I have them?
yeah,
Yeah.
so you already know that, and he's also a pretty like well-known TV actor, so you know that he's in on whatever is going to go down is the other thing. So
You think he's a little guilty?
yeah, like it's just, well, him first of all getting blowjobs from the town drunk is kind of weird, and then second of all, just kind of it's a cold case that was never solved. So why would you be hesitant to kind of let her know that, oh, well, yeah, I did take
Right.
those files home,
Yeah, like why
because like
why?
yeah,
Because like,
like that
what's the
just
harm in that if it's a cold case?
right. So that just makes him even more suspicious. But like, there's clearly something else that we haven't been exposed to yet
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
will probably happen. So we'll see. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let us know in the comments. What do you guys think? So then we see the mystery woman Rose again, and she's following Trevor with no jacket and no shoes on, who is a ghost. And in my notes, I put he's not real, right? Like, because I didn't know at this point, but we find that out. So we get one more scene with those two later. Pete brings over the files to Danvers' house of the Annie K cold case.
Ann Masu Kotok. People called her Annie K. Stabbed 32 times.
And then she had her tongue also cut off and it was never recovered. So people are thinking possibly it's the same tongue. I don't know if that's possible. It would, how long ago was this cold case? Did they even say?
Yeah, no
No,
way.
they
They
didn't say at all.
Yeah. So
Although it's pretty cold there. I guess you could preserve it pretty well.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Navarro was obsessed with this case. She went too far. She got in fights with people. So she was taken off the case by Hank.
Body was found on the edge of the villages. Navarro was the first on the scene. And she got in a couple of fights with some line workers. Your dad had to take her off the case.
Another little shady bit on Hank of trying to get someone away from the case. Maybe. I'm just speculating on Hank right now. And then Liz says no killer was ever going to be found anyway.
This one was never going to be solved.
And it kind of drove Navarro mad and she got demoted because of it. So then Navarro goes to her booty call, which she forces him to go inside her. That was, or finish inside her. That was,
Yeah.
Yeah, this so
Uncomfortable.
yeah,
yeah.
this entire scene was like, so I know like HBO is kind of known to have sex scenes in their shows, and I know like True Detective had bits of them, but like if we're because like when they were doing the promos for this season, it was like, oh, you're going to see a lot of ties back to season one. And then I think about season one, I'm like, there were two sex scenes. One was kind of useless. It was just showing that Woody Harrelson's character was just a dog, basically. But
Yeah.
then the other one was showing how manipulative his wife was to his partner. Like that was
Hmm.
the whole point. So watching this one, I'm just like, okay, it's showing that she's more dominant and more assertive. But that scene went on way too long. I did not
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I did not need to see her riding that dude as long as I did. That just made
Yeah.
me
It was a little
uncomfortable.
dramatic. I did not
Yeah,
like it.
not a
Yep.
fan.
And then she goes on to steal his SpongeBob toothbrush, which, like, why?
Which is that's fucked
Yeah.
up, man.
Yeah.
You don't steal a
Yeah,
man's SpongeBob toothbrush. You just
That's-
don't.
no.
Hey, well, that's my toothbrush.
That's his precious. And then after that, she goes to pick up booze, and she sees that asshole from earlier who had his nose broken in that confrontation with the metal bucket. So she pours liquor into his gas tank, right? That's where his gas tank was, I guess.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, weird place for a gas tank, but hey, whatever. So she wants to screw him over, so she pours liquor into it. And then while she's driving, she spots a one-eyed polar bear. Thoughts on this, Vex? You mentioned something about the polar bear, so you want to elaborate more on that now?
Oh, okay. I'll read. Okay, yeah, yeah. So polar bears are like a sign of resilience, which ties into the whole Alaska thing because you got to be pretty resilient to live in Alaska when it's dark that much of the year. And then the one-eyed thing is like it's like a two-eyed theory from like indigenous. One eye is like set on the indigenous world, and then one eye is set on the Western world, and it's supposed to help like indigenous peoples kind of adapt to the way that the world changes and to like how cultures blend together. So like it's clear that it's already kind of alluded through like quite a bit of dialogue that there is still like some racial and cultural tension.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
when they were talking about Annie's case, when Navarro was talking about Annie's case, it's like, oh, like if it were a white girl, it would be different.
It wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened. Yeah.
Right. And like if we would already have like we know that there's not going to be a suspect because it's it was white people
Right.
and
Right.
everything.
Which, like, sadly is true in real life. So,
Right. So it's like I didn't find that as far-fetched as maybe other people
no.
might find it because of that. And then there's also like Pete and Kayla. She's like, "How did I fall for a white boy?" I'm like,
Yeah.
so it's like they're really trying to set the tone that there is some racial divide here that is
Yeah.
affecting the true crime, like the crime rate in the
Yeah.
area.
And then we see Liz Danvers at home, and she has spread out all of the information she has on the scientist from the research station. And it was a really cool image of her on top of all the files. I really like that. I'll put it in right here.
Yeah, that was
And
cool.
then yeah, it was a cool shot. And then she's digging through the Annie K docs, and she notices that Annie's coat had a rip on the shoulder. And then one of the researchers had that same coat that had a patch on that side of the shoulder. So could be the same coat. Most likely is the same coat. Could he be the killer of Annie K? Possibly. Could he know someone that did it? Possibly. Could he be involved? Absolutely could be involved. So that was really
Can I
cool.
just point out how stupid that photo scene is for a moment? It's like, first of all, like it was cool at the end when you get the zoom out shot and she's got
Yeah.
the photos all around her in a circle. But when
Yeah.
it starts off, she's laying them in neat rows, right?
Right.
And then instead of her just you're like, oh, they're in a neat row, let me just pile them onto. Then she just does this with them.
Yeah, like, what was the point of that?
What was the point of spending all that time laying out if you're just going to do this? Like it was just it was over dramatic and over stylized just for the point of like, oh, this is a detective show. Like we
Yeah.
gotta show the files, guys, you know? But
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my god, that's so silly. You didn't need to do all that.
Yeah.
It felt like filler.
Yeah.
Just for the cool shot. It's all for the shot, you know?
If it just did that, I would have been fine. But it's like
Yeah.
it's just like I see you literally lay this out intentionally neatly and then do this.
Yeah.
Like what was the point?
So then Rose and Trevor again, and in my notes, I'm like, what the fuck is this at this point? I'm like, what is going on? He does a little dance and he points off into the distance, and we find out in just a second where he was pointing and what that led to. But Liz runs into Navarro at the research station, and she shows her the coat.
I don't know. Anything that might have belonged to her? Shoe, earring, coat?
So they go to the man's room who was wearing the coat. His name is Raymond Clark, and he was the only person who had a solo room by himself.
The only one with a room of his own.
Which one is him?
Raymond Clark.
Yeah, I've never seen this guy before.
They talk more about Annie K's case, and Navarro is still really pissed off about the whole thing. This is when they had that talk about if it was a white woman, it would have been different, never would have happened.
Right.
Wouldn't have happened if she was white, though.
Wouldn't make any difference what color her
It would have.
skin
They
was.
would have had the whole fucking police force out looking for a white ass.
And she's really just pissed and wants answers on this cold case, and you can see it's really, really eating at her. So we're going to see Navarro and Danvers working together closely throughout the rest of the show, I'm sure. They're going to this
Yeah, probably.
They're
Picture-
in all the promos.
picture right here. Yeah, so they're going to be working together, so we'll see how that happens. And the end of the episode, Danvers gets a call. They found something in the ice. Who found something in the ice? Rose did.
Rose Agonal, Chief. Rose Agonal found it.
Rose says Travis showed her. Navarro's like, Travis is dead. She's like, yeah, I know. He still showed me.
How did you find them?
Travis showed me.
Travis. Travis is dead.
I know.
What do
It's
you want
like
me to
it's
do?
normal every day. Like, yeah, my
Yeah.
dead son just showed me
fine.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you want me to do? He showed. I found it. So he showed me.
Like, you're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome. He's dead. And yeah. So then we see 3 of them, right? 3 of the scientists.
Yes.
Yes.
Were buried with their heads in the ice and their hands sticking out. So that's it. We got at least 3 of them dead so far. I don't recall how many of them there were. I think at least like around 10, something like that.
Yeah, it was like 8 or 10 or that.
Yeah,
There
something
were
like
quite a
that.
few. Yeah.
Something around that. So that's it. That's the first episode. So guys, let us know any theories you have, anything that you might have picked out, and we're gonna do theory videos. So closing thoughts. What do you guys think?
It was good. I didn't love it. Vex and I were saying earlier, like it kind of felt like a slow roll for the start of
Yeah.
it. It didn't feel like it had a lot of substance. So
Yeah, especially since there's only 6 episodes. So hopefully
right.
next week it really starts to pick up. But I have faith that it's gonna be good. I've heard a lot of reviews saying it's very, very good. So I think there's gonna be a lot of cool twists and turns coming our way soon.
I was also pretty disappointed. Like, I'm willing to give this the benefit of the doubt. I didn't know it was 6 episodes until you told me, like, earlier. So that makes me a little more disappointed, because if you're working with that tight of a constraint, you'd think that maybe there would be a lot more. Like, I would
Right.
have expected us to at least have, like, started to look at the bodies in this episode then.
Right.
Because that's what they did in season 1, right? It's like we immediately go right in and they find the body and things get like nitty gritty from the get-go, but at the same time we get a pretty solid understanding of who our lead characters are. Here it was just like, it was the entire time was kind of spent on the main characters, how they're just super independent and headstrong women kind of deal. And then there wasn't, I would have liked more exploration maybe on the Annie case, because it felt a little bit like haphazardly thrown in there almost. If you think that this is tied together, like with the woman's tongue and everything, why would
Right.
they go back to maybe the place where they found that body? Like it just, like, that didn't feel like it was woven in very well. Like, so I'm a little bit hesitant, because like this first episode was not very good. But like I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt. Like, I imagine next episode it will kick off really nicely, but
Yeah.
I would like not to get so much sex in the next
Yeah.
episode. And pointless photos.
Pointless mashing around.
Right.
Okay, so now it's up to you guys. What did you guys think? What did you spot out? And just go wild in the comments below. And we're gonna make a theory video very, very soon. We'll be here all along for the ride for the entire season. So hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Later.
Bye, guys.
Because this is taking place in what seems to be a community that's also shared with like indigenous people in the area, because the cops and everything, and there's a clear overlay with the indigenous stepdaughter, adopted daughter, whatever, that Jodie Foster has, and then the other cop is in an interracial relationship and whatnot. But I figure they're just playing up, like, there's a lot of stuff in that culture about like unrested spirits, or spirits kind of guiding them, kind of thing. The polar bear showed up a few times as well, which is like if you go Inuit, so we're not really an Inuit area, but if you go Inuit, the polar bear it's very precious because of how much material it can produce, like the meat, the fat, the fur, it's all can be used. But then if you just go kind of a little more broader, it's like a sign of resilience, which, you know, you're in the middle literally of nowhere in a place that experiences dark for what, 3 to 6 months of the year.
Crazy.
So you
I
have,
couldn't live there. Couldn't live there.
yeah, me neither. So like you have to be pretty resilient to kind of deal like life in Alaska first of all. And then there's like the one-eyed thing that keeps coming up too. Like there's a
Mhm.
polar
Oh yeah.
I saw
right?
that.
So I was just like thinking like, oh, this must be like the two-eyed thing. So it's like one eye like is like it has an eye focused on like indigenous culture, and then the other eye is like focused on Western culture. And it's supposed
Oh,
to
I
help
like
like
that.
yeah, it's supposed to help like an indigenous person kind of like adapt to the world as it changes. So that's why I was like, oh, maybe like because like it was an indigenous girl that we find out died, right? And when they're looking
Yeah.
at that tongue, they're just like, oh, there's lines on it. It's just a fishing tongue. I'm like, okay.
Like what?
Right. I was just like, okay, that's kind of weird. Yeah, so I figure it's because there seems to be a pattern of indigenous people missing, which is a thing that happens anyways. They're probably gonna
Yeah.
yeah, those are the heavy symbolism that I picked up on.
Wow, that's a great start.
All right. Now I got to do that intro again. Okay. Here we go.
It's okay. I was
All right.
laughing a little bit, so
Dan versus Vex's favorite last name. Get it?
oh, I get it. I get it. You marvelous bastard.
Oh, I don't know. I forgot what I was trying to say. Out, outtakes asking to be let out, and then Hank goes. Did that
Why
happen
is there
again?
a bubble
I
on your
don't know.
screen?
Stuff like that happens every now and then, and it's so weird. I'll never understand, and I always put it in the outtakes. I don't
Keep that
don't
one
know.
in. Hold on. Because that's just like that's an easy like the
Yeah,
video.
like the
Like
video.
and subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah.